I had a conversation with Travis Frank earlier. He is a lawyer, and he talked to me about the entire process of becoming a lawyer. Along the way, he gave us tips, advice, and guidance as well. I hope you guys enjoy the podcast. Don't forget, if you like what you hear, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can stay up to date on my channel. Hope you guys enjoy. So what's up, dude?
Not much. How you been? How's everything going? How's Margo?
Doing good. Margo is starting to eat now. Margo's eating puree, so she's doing some like banana puree. Got her on some pears, so that's interesting to see. Yeah, she's doing good. Did you get this background from Skype?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, they have a few. They have one that I usually use on my Zoom calls, the same one.
Yeah. So this podcast format is a beer, is a beer with Travis Frank. That's what it's going to be called, a beer with Travis Frank. I got a nice IPA with me right now.
Yeah, you convinced me this morning. That's what I picked up as well.
Yeah.
Well,
I hope I didn't ruin your Friday night.
No, not at all.
How's work going?
Yeah, it's going good. Things are picking up. We actually have a bunch of trials coming up in Suffolk, which I may jump in on one or two of them to get my feet wet.
This be your first trial?
Yeah. So I'm gonna go in with another guy from my office who, seasoned vet. So it'll be good. Get some good experience, some good exposure. I'm excited.
Will you talk and like participate, or are you just watching?
Well, I think what he wants me to do is he wants me to kind of take the reins a little bit, kind of jump in there. So we'll
okay.
See. It should be interesting, yeah.
That's awesome. Could be a little nerve-wracking, but if I know you, you probably are going to be super prepared. So I can see that. I can see you'd be doing fine there.
Yeah.
Nah.
A little exciting, a little nerve-wracking, but
yeah. It's probably something that every first person who goes on trial feels. And you have been in court before, you just haven't done a live trial.
Right, yeah.
This is with a jury.
Exactly.
A jury. You've never had a jury, but you've dealt with a judge and all the legal proceedings. But now this is with an actual jury that you have to convince.
Yep, go into the whole jury select.
Yeah.
Select the 12 of them, go in there, opening statements, cross-examination, the whole works. So and it's a pretty rare opportunity for newer attorneys, because most firms, you don't really get that opportunity. You kind of got to put in some time before you get the chance to actually go and try a case. So
how did you get this opportunity?
Well, with my firm, we're a pretty high volume firm, and yeah, just my boss has been pushing me. He's like, you want to try cases? You want to try cases? I'm like, absolutely. So one came across where he's like, this is going to be a great opportunity for you if you want to do it. I'm like, absolutely. Are
you allowed to say, not like saying who's involved, but are you allowed to say what type of case it is? Or are you not allowed to say that?
Oh, absolutely. It's a motor vehicle accident. So
got it.
Client was involved in a car accident. I believe it was, it's an intersectional collision. Actually, funny enough, it took place right around here, right in Port Jeff.
Really?
Yeah.
So you work all around, because you're saying you technically cover all Long Island or Suffolk?
Yeah. So, my firm, we do all of the island. We do all the 5 boroughs, partially Westchester.
Got it.
Yeah, but me primarily, I'm Suffolk County. But yeah, it's funny. This one was pretty local, so I'm very familiar with the location. Which helped, obviously.
I guess no one else will know this, but how far away is it from your house? How far?
Couple.
Geez, yeah. Okay. You're very familiar then.
Yeah, 112 and 347. I know you're familiar. Some other people might not be, but
yeah,
really close.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I know you're not allowed to talk about all that stuff, but I'm generally speaking, I want to hear how it goes later. If you know me, every time I have a question that has anything to do with law, with an attorney, I bug the hell out of you because I'm just interested about the topic. So This podcast, I try to get people on. Me and Trav, we've known each other for 10 plus years, so I know what's going on here. We have known each other for a long time, but I try to get people on who are doing things that someone in high school or college would look at you and say, how do I get in that position? Me personally, I understand, because I've talked to you about this. I understand very briefly, like when I say briefly, surface level information of how you got to be a lawyer, but I have no idea the steps, what kind of work was involved, what was challenging, how you overcame those challenges. And so, since I know a lawyer, I figured I'd have you on here because people might be wondering how the hell they can be a lawyer. So my questioning will be a lot about how the hell you became a lawyer and what were the obstacles around that. So for now, we'll start off with this. I think I know what you're doing, but I don't know law exactly. What kind of law do you practice?
Yeah, by all means. And I'm always an open door anytime you call. Anything I can help out, I got you. So right now I've been doing personal injury law for about almost 4 years now, which mainly involves I'm on the plaintiff side. So you get into an accident, you're injured, you reach out to an attorney, will represent you, we'll sue the other vehicle that was involved. Not just motor vehicle accidents, could be a slip and fall, you're in the supermarket, a trip and fall, you're at someone's house. Whatever it might be, you're walking down the street, you trip on the sidewalk, there's a crack in the sidewalk. Anything where, you get injured and, someone was at fault, that's what we're here for. So we handle a lot of that, various injuries, injuries that affect your life on a daily basis. These things are unfortunate, they happen to everybody. So it's nice to be able to work with them, try to get the best resolution for them, to try and make their lives, a little more meaningful, because some of these, injuries are very debilitating and, can affect their lives going forward. So it's definitely an interesting area. You meet a lot of people, you see a lot of things, so it's exciting.
You see all the rare things that happen. We all have car insurance for very rare things, and it never really happens to most people. But you get to see like how detrimental it could be. I guess because of all that, do you have like super good insurance now that you know like how bad it could affect people's lives?
Yeah, it's definitely opened up my eyes more because, like you said, it's an aspect you don't ever consider. So it's a worst case scenario, and
yeah,
unfortunately, it does happen. And if you have it, that's great. If not, it's unfortunate.
So right now, I'm trying to. So when you think of different avenues that you can be when you're a lawyer, my understanding is you can either be like a trial lawyer, and then there's like what, just like is there another type of lawyer outside of a trial lawyer? Like I don't think normal people who don't know law know this.
So an attorney encompasses a whole bunch of things. As an attorney, depending on what field you want to practice in, and by field, area of law, you can do anything you want. Going into law school, I didn't know what I wanted to, what field I wanted to work in. But you can, aside from maritime law and patent law, those are kind of one of the two areas of law where you actually need an additional degree to practice in those fields. But as far as being an attorney, some attorneys want to go into law and try cases and be a trial attorney. Others, believe it or not, other attorneys might not want to be in front of a judge or, handle the trials in those aspects. And they may be in the office, either working with clients hand-on in the office, writing motions, paperwork, handling discovery, all the kind of the grind work that goes into really getting the case to trial, which is ultimately the end goal or the end route of a case when it gets to that. Now, majority of cases don't even get to trial; they settle.
But your aspiration, if you're a lawyer, unless you're afraid to do it, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Your aspiration, I'm not saying yours, but like if you, for example, if you're like aspiration to be in business, you like, oh, my aspiration is to be the CEO of the business or the owner or whatever. But being a lawyer isn't like prime time. Being good in trial, like it's rare, but like when it happens, like you have to be clutch and you have to step up, and like that's your time to shine. I'm just trying to think, like, could you really be a great attorney if you never do trials?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I think what you're referring to is, so within like a law firm, there is essentially a hierarchy. You start out as an associate attorney. Then, the more time you put in, the better you become over the years. The more you learn, the more you grow, the more you experience. Most people eventually want to become a partner in that firm. And with the partner comes, the experience, the exposure to trials. Typically, a lot of trial attorneys who have done a ton of trials, either when they start their own firm or they join another firm, they'll come in as either a trial partner in the firm, which is, higher up on the hierarchy, um, you know, in that aspect. Then there's other, partners within the firm that are, let's say, the managing partner. And let's say I have my own firm, I could be the managing partner, and I could never step foot on a trial, throughout my entire career. I'm just, the name partner. It might be my firm. I manage everything, the day to day, like a business, because operating a law firm is very much like a business, very similar. So they have a lot of the same, aspects, going forward. So you kind of need both of those. You got your associates, kind of, do the grunt work coming in. They do a lot of that. Most of the stuff, the partners don't want to do themselves, but
Yeah.
you got the whole hierarchy, which is
Yeah. What is your aspiration? Do you want to be a trial lawyer?
See, I think I do, but at the same time, I don't know until I get in there and do it. So that's why I definitely, want to do one, get the experience, and if it's, something I love, then I'm all in. But sometimes, I may not like it, and I may, hey, listen, I don't want to do trials. I'll appear in court, I'll do everything else, but trials may not be for me. Kind of different for everyone.
What percent of cases actually go to trial? Because most of them settle, is what you say and what I understand. So most of them, what percent? Is it like 10%?
I would say probably even less than that. I would say 95+% of all cases settle.
So if you were someone who wanted to be a trial lawyer, and knowing how long they take, could you, like, if you're strictly a trial lawyer, you may only have like 2 trials a year. Is that like, how many trials a year can you on average have, you think?
Well, again, it depends on, the firm, the size
Got
of
it.
So like like I said, my firm is, a higher volume firm. So we have a lot of cases, which increases the odds of, trials happening. But there's a lot of these boutique, smaller general practice firms that may not have as, large of a caseload or as many clients. So again, it depends on the firm that you're working at. So
got it. All right. Here, where I think I know the answer to this. I think I do. We'll see. When did you say like that you wanted to become a lawyer? I think it has to do from a TV show that you really loved. But was there anything else that made you like say, you know what, I want to be a lawyer. I want to go into law.
So there's a few things, and the show he's referring to is Suits. And if you haven't seen it, watch it. Fantastic show. Out of all the shows and movies you see, Suits has a pretty good grasp on the realisticness of, in courtroom and a law firm workings. But no, so originally I had no idea I wanted to be a lawyer. I went to Bryant University for business. I was undecided in business. Didn't really like that. Went to Penn State. Took a lot of like criminal justice and sociology of criminology courses, which really jumped out to me, and I liked the aspect of it. And
at Penn State, you took those classes?
Yeah, at Penn State, and I was meeting with my my advisor, looking for avenues, and what really where I wanted to go, what route I wanted to go, what major I wanted, and she threw out a couple with me, and I was like, oh, that sounds very interesting. That sounds awesome. You always hear about growing up lawyers, doctors and all this. And
yeah,
the way she laid it out, it was something, with my, fortunately with my GPA and, my credits and everything, it it was within grasp and reach. And as you know, once I set my mind to something, I'm going to do it. So I kind of one day just made the decision, you know what, I'm going to be a lawyer. And from there on out, the rest is history. I did everything I could in my power to do it.
So fortunately, you have a photographic memory, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it helps.
What you tell me is you have a photographic memory. I think I believe it because you just don't forget things. So in college, you went to Bryant University. But didn't at that point know you wanted to be a lawyer. Then you went to Penn State, took some interesting classes that piqued your interest, talked to an advisor, and maybe a slight percent of it was like the TV show, but mostly
12%.
all of them got you interested in how it works.
Yeah.
Interested in law. Got it. All right. Now, what is the process to be actually now? Okay, I want to do this. So in my head, it's like I have these things written down. You'd have to go to school, obviously. You need to take certain tests. And then after that, you still have to find a job, which I don't know how hard. I mean, talk to most people who get out of college. Getting a job, it's not the hardest thing in the world, but the very specific job that you want isn't always the easiest. But taking a step back, how is the school? What is the schooling like first? And then you got to take tests. But what's the schooling like?
Yeah. So first things first, unless you really want to become a lawyer, don't do it. God's honest truth. I'm going to tell you, it's a long, enduring, stressful, worthy, but process. So if you're 50-50 going into it and you're not fully committed, you're not going to enjoy it, and you're likely not going to be able to succeed in it. So before you even get into law school, you have to take what's called the Lsat, which is a pre-test to get into law school. So before you even get to law school, you got to take a test. And this isn't just your ordinary test. This is a couple-day test, that tests your reading comprehension. They have a section strictly on mini games, like games that try to get you to, like actual like puzzles that try
like a case study, sort of like
like actual like games. Like we have 4 people on this box. You got to get them into this box, but you can only move 2 at a time.
Gotcha. Testing your like problem-solving skills.
Yeah, it's not.
So you can't prepare for that.
Well, you can and you can't. So it's not a test about knowledge. It's a test about getting you to think differently and how you can logically and creatively deduct and from different scenarios to formulate different answers.
Are there common problems, or are they always new?
So I would say if you're interested in law school and becoming a lawyer and you're taking the LSAT, highly recommend taking either a Kaplan course or some type of course to tutor before you take the LSAT.
You say Kaplan, is that Kaplin?
Kaplan course. That's why it's a little pricey, but definitely worth it. They will increase your score significantly.
What's the cost?
So
pricey.
I think it was around like $1,500 when I took it, and I took it when I was still in Penn State, for that short time period. But what they do is they helped show me there's different tricks that to taking the test that you can utilize, whether it be in the, just different, because you're timed on the test. So there's different tricks you can learn to manipulate and, read a question or a paragraph. Let's say you had, multiple choice and, you had to find the answer, but you can only spend, 20 seconds per question rather than read through the whole question from start to finish, then reading the answer. They kind of teach you little tricks like read what the question is first before you read the paragraph so you know what you're looking for. Then read the last part of the paragraph first to get the conclusion, and then jump to the beginning. So it's different tricks and nuances that going in, you will never think to do.
That's like similar to like SATs, like tips, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you go to a 4-year college and for the most part, you have a decent amount of the credits that you can pivot, and then you pivot, and then you got to prepare for you have to prepare for the LSAT at while you're at Penn State.
No, I just happened to do it because I had a break between when I graduated in the winter and when my lease was up. So I stayed there. I had a course down the block because it was very local. So I did it while I was there.
Got it.
Yeah. And even after the 4 years, to get into law school, you don't have to, graduate with a certain degree. There's people who go to law school, English degree, majoring in English,
really?
Business, criminology, a whole variety of them.
So the only requirement is the LSAT.
Yeah.
Got it.
And obviously a college degree.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. How is the LSAT structured? Is it like one long test, or is it multiple times you have to do it? Like how is that done?
It's one long test that you take there. It's like a 6-hour test, broken into like I think it was 3 components, 3 different sections, like a writing section, reading comprehension, and the game section that I referenced. So it's one long test, and with the LSAT, the thing about the LSAT is you can take it more than once. So let's say you take it the first time, you don't get it because each law school has a target score that they look for acceptance. So for example, the range might go from 80 to 200, 80 being the low, 200 being the high. 150s, or 150 is considered a very good score. 120 average, but most schools look for the 140 to the 150. Then you got the Harvards, the Yales, the Ivy League schools that look for 160, 170 plus.
And they look at the latest test, or they take an average of all?
So they are able to see how many times you take it. So some schools that factors in, other schools they just look at your highest score. It's kind of one of those where if you don't do as well as you think you wanted to the first time, take it again. If you didn't take the course the first time, take the course the second time, and bump your score up 10, 15 points, whatever it is. It'll help. Schools will look at that.
How many times did you have to take it?
I took it once.
Once.
Yeah, I was
photographic memory. Do you actually think you have a photographic memory?
I do. Not like the storybook. Oh, he's a photographic memory, but it's essentially photographic. Yeah, it came in handy in a lot of tests. But
you studied hard. Did you study your ass off?
Yes. Yeah. And I'm sure we'll get into that, but that's why, for me, I'm not, my cousin went to law school, and she's reaching out to me asking about the whole process in law school and how I studied and all that. And I was like, listen, I'm not a great reference.
You always tell me this. You say like you're not a good person to ask because you just are just like smart, so you just get through it easier than others. So you don't have any tips. Like there's no like, I use a flashcard, or like you just don't.
I did do that. What helped for me because I had my 1 or 2 friends in law school that we made a study group and we did study together. But for me, what helped, and it actually was a double-edged sword, which worked out for me is, for me, it depends. If I didn't have a good professor, or if I didn't like the professor, or I didn't like his style of teaching, I wasn't going to learn anything at all. So what I'd have to do, and is what I did often, is I would kind of teach myself the whole course before midterms or before the final. And in doing so, I would kind of teach it to my couple of friends that we'd study with, and that would kind of help, revamp or instill, the facts or the law into me by teaching them it.
I just recently talked to someone about like their management style, and they were like, oh, the best way I can have someone learn it is have them teach it to somebody else. It's like a interesting way to learn. But the thing is, how did you learn an entire class before it was taught? Like, when did you do that?
So before midterms or before finals, we would go, the weekend, and we'd do the traditional study methods. We'd make the flashcards. One thing that helped for me was, anagrams. So if you have a list of, let's say words or rules or definitions that you have to remember, create an anagram. So whatever it starts with, D, R, A, whatever, dirty rugs apply. You make an anagram to kind of familiar yourself. So if you see that, that fact pattern or whatever,
Yeah.
term they're asking for, oh, never eat froggy, soggy waffles,
Yes.
something like that.
I read a book. I forget the damn name of it, but it was mental tricks like this to remember things. One of them I remember was like a house. Like basically it was basically the manogram thing, you imagine, but that you need to, in order to remember things, to have an anchor. An anchor meaning like, um, if I have a house is my anchor, and I always know that in my head if I'm looking at this house and I put something in the bathroom, like, and next time I walk in the house in my mental model, I know that like this is in a bathroom, so maybe it's like a definition you have to remember. Like, oh, I always know that it's like you always need to place something in a anchor.
Right.
Is what I understand.
You familiarize, you get your roots down, and then anything outside of that, you have like a mental map of where it should go, where it shouldn't go.
Anything else outside of mammograms? I'm trying to tap into your genius here. Maybe
So,
you just have really good tricks. Maybe you're not that smart. Maybe you just have really good tricks.
hey, don't be giving away all my secrets. No, for me, what I would do is, I'd make an outline, outlining the semester. Either especially in school, in high school, in college, get a group together if you're studying, if you're taking notes in class, create an outline, share it with each other. You don't have to do the whole thing yourself. You could break it up into sections. Create one outline for the test that you want to do and share it amongst people because they may have something to add. They may have something to correct that maybe you misunderstood. So for me, we would all have outlines. And I was in, especially for the bar, but even in law school, I would study the outline. And this is where the photographic memory comes into play. Because I'll read through an outline a couple of times until I know it, word for word. And then if I'm trying to reference that outline on the test, I can see that page and I know exactly where what I'm looking for is on that page. So,
But do you trust, like when you're in a study, every time in college when I was in a study group, I wasn't productive. It, do you, I feel like if I feel like you yourself would trust yourself more than like someone else to write your study guide. Like how did you really relied on a lot of people to create like portions of the study guide, or were you taking on a lot yourself?
so you got to surround yourself with people who you think are going to help you. If you have people that go to study and they're constantly complaining or they're distracted, distance yourself from them. They're not going to help you. They're going to drag you down. So I had two people in law school that I consistently studied with on a daily basis, and that was it. It was a small group, and we would all make our own outlines, and then we'd read through each other's outlines. We'd go through ours first, then we'd switch. See their outline. Maybe we missed something. Maybe they missed something. They bring it up. Oh yeah, we learned about this. You explain what it is. You kind of share that way. So it's not necessarily relying solely on them, but contributing in a way where you may miss something, they may miss something, so it can help you.
Do you have a favorite class that you've taken that in law related?
In law school or college? I guess law school.
Either or.
So there's a few in law school that I actually enjoyed, which is crazy to think because not many people should say they enjoyed classes in law school. But so the first is one of the core classes, contracts, which you learn about contract law. And for me, I just thought that was the most interesting thing ever because it breaks down contracts in every daily lives. For example, the handshake contract, but that's a very simplified version of that. But that could be in some scenarios a binding contract. But so there was contract law, and then there was another course that I took my third year, and that was law practice management, and that was starting your own firm. And we had a adjunct professor come in who actually did that, started her own firm, and she discussed everything that new attorneys or even seasoned attorneys would have to consider when opening up or starting their own law firm. So that was cool because that's something I would want to. I want to do one day is open up my own firm, start my own practice.
Do you have like past professors that you still keep in touch with? Like, are they mentors to you at all still?
I have one or two. I have one of she wasn't my professor, but she was a professor there that I went to a lot, and used her throughout all of law school. Spoke to her, if we wanted to just complain or if we had questions about stuff, we would go to her, and she would help with that.
Got it.
I have another professor that I talk to every now and then, if I have a question or if someone reaches out to me and about in an area that I'm not familiar with, I'd be like, oh, let me ask so and so, and they're more than willing to help you if they want.
Well, it's good to have a nice network there. Okay, so you take and you prepare like hell for this LSAT. You pass. Now you get into law school. How long is law school?
So for full-time students, it's 3 years. There is the option for people, because in law school, it doesn't matter if you're fresh out of college or if you had another profession for 20 years. You have people of all ages in law school. Full-time people, it's 3 years. You can go part-time. They have options of that. Obviously, it's extended for 5 years, whatever you might need. But traditionally, the full-time is 3 years.
Okay, so take 3 years. Now you have to pass the bar, right? Am I on track here?
That is, yep.
Okay, so you got to pass the bar. Is the LSAT harder than the bar?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. So it's building up, baby. It's building up. So now you're built up for the bar. That's the hardest test, you would say, throughout your whole school career when it comes to law school.
Yep.
And previous. That was the hardest test you've ever taken.
By far. Arguably, it's one of the hardest tests among any professions.
How long did you have to study for that?
So this varies, but me, myself, given everything, I studied 6 days a week for 4 months straight.
Damn. Okay.
And this was from the time I graduated, I think it was May of 2017, up until taking the test, and even a little bit before May, maybe April, up until the test was the end of July, 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, 8 to 10 hours a day.
And you passed on your first round?
Yeah. And that's the thing. So for young people or anybody taking the bar or going to take the bar, put the time in. Sacrifice your time that you need to now so you can pass the first time. Because one of the main things we were taught and told when studying for the bar and going in and all the bar courses and whatever it might be is going with the mindset that you're going to pass the first time. You can take it a second time, but statistically, your odds of passing the second or third time decrease because of how mental the test is. It's mentally draining. It's a 2-day test, 12 hours long. Go in, you're going to crush it the first time, you're going to get it done, and you're going to move on your way.
12 hours a day for 2 days, so 24 hours?
No, six the first day, the second, yeah.
And what kind of format? Is it like multiple choice? What kind of format is it?
So day 1 is multiple choice, all multiple choice. Day 2 is a combination of short essays based on fact. They give you a fact pattern, and you have to apply applicable law in a short essay. And then part 2 on the second day is a longer essay.
Got it. Okay. So you studied for, I forget, I think you said 4 to 5 days a week for 6 weeks. So roughly 20 to 30 days and about 8 hours a day.
Well, I mean, clearly you go for math.
I don't remember exactly what you said.
6 days a week for about 3 months, I would say.
Oh.
Yeah.
Got it.
So my summer in 2017 did not exist. Which it happens, but put the time in now. Otherwise, you don't put the time in that first summer or whenever you might take it, you're going to end up doing the same thing the following summer. So rather than miss 2 summers or whatever it might be, put the work in, get it done.
Do you know what the percent drop off is if you fail the first test? How many people fail the second? No, it's just dramatically decreased. And your I'm assuming your law school like preps you for that.
To an extent that they can, because each law school has their, their pass fail rate, each year.
I'm assuming they want to have a good pass rate.
Yes, of course, because the better your pass rate, the better the school is.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you pass. You pass with flying colors, and now the hardest test of you is behind you. Well, who knows? You got another test coming up. You got trial. It's another test.
But honestly, I think bar might be a little tougher.
Okay. What is the process to get a job now?
So, after you wait the grueling 3 or 4 months to find out if you even passed or failed the test, then you start applying. You can even start applying, once you finish taking the bar. And some places you can get hired, but you're not technically an admitted attorney, so obviously you can't appear in court. But you can still work for the firm, getting that experience. But for me, it was just sending out my resume to anybody I could, going on Indeed, LinkedIn, whatever it might have been. If you see something that's interesting, apply.
How did you end up getting this the job you're in? Were you doing some networking?
So I was fortunate enough on Indeed. So after my first employment from college, from law school, wasn't happy there. Made a decision to leave. Then started interviewing with a couple other firms locally. Then just started expanding. Found this one, seemed interesting. Reached out to them, and within a couple of days, I got a call from the managing partner, my boss, Mark Linder now, and he was like, "Hey, when can you come in for an interview?" I said, "I'll be there tomorrow."
But your first one you didn't like, but it was a good stepping stone, you think? Did it prepare you to the next job, I would say? Like my first job out of college, I hated. Felt like, I just didn't like it. But it was it was a stepping stone to get my next job, which wasn't like a big step, but it was like, okay, it helped me make this move. I had some work experience. I never interned. I never really did an internship. So I was like, maybe this is just my internship. I'm assuming this had some level of influence to help you get to the next spot, or the way you're looking at me makes it seem like no.
Yes and no. So before I get to that, I just want to say, getting the first job out of law school, it's difficult. A lot of these firms require 1 to 3 years of experience, but you're coming out of law school, you have no experience. So the frustrating thing is you're applying to all these jobs, and you don't have the experience, but you're trying to get the experience, but no one's giving you the opportunity to get the experience. So it's difficult, and a lot of people find it difficult to get a job fresh out of law school. Don't worry, just keep applying, keep going on the interviews, use the interviews as tools to better yourself. So what I started doing is I would apply to jobs that I might not even be interested in. I was going for the interview practice for that one job that I really was interested in. Because I can go in, I can tailor the way I want to ask questions to how the firm operates, I can tailor my responses to some of their questions about how I think I'm going to help the company or where I see myself in 5 years, your standard questions. Use that as experience to better your interviewing skills, and just keep applying, because eventually you'll get that first job. Hopefully it's in something you enjoy. More often than not, at a law school, it's not something you enjoy. Try to find something out of it. So fortunately, even though I wasn't a fan, I did not like my first job, but I got to go to court, albeit I was all the way in the city a couple days a week. Commute's not fun, as you know. For most of you don't know, I'm deep out in Suffolk, so it's a hike. But yeah, got the court experience, which was, it's a resume builder at that point. Take what you can get. Writing motions, whatever you're doing in the office, appearing in court, whatever you need to do it. Do it as well as you can, and put it on your resume for that next job.
What was your experience like the first time you had to take lead and stand in front of a judge and go through the motions? And were you prepared at that point? Were you did law school really prepare you 100% for that? Or is it like business school where it's like, oh yeah, I prepared you on like definitions on like what operations is, and then you get into the business world and you're like, oh, okay. There's a lot I haven't learned.
So some good and bad news. Gonna be brutally honest with you guys. Everything you learn in law school, you might as well throw it out the window. You don't use it in practice. Maybe like the evidentiary rules, which if you go to law school, you'll learn some technical things. Yeah, law school, unfortunately, and that's the problem with law schools, and I think some of the colleges, they don't teach you real life practicing in the world, information. So unfortunately, law school gets you the degree to become an attorney, but it doesn't really get you the experience or the tools that you need. So when you're in law school, try to intern anywhere you can. All of the courts in Suffolk County, wherever you might be from, they're all open to the public. So if you're in law school and you have some free time, go sit in, go to court, go into a courtroom, sit down, watch, go on the internet, watch, some trials.
Did you do that? Did you actually go to the courts and just like watch them?
Yeah, so fortunately enough, where I went to law school, there was the courthouse across the street. So through my law school, we had a program where we were able to go across and get that experience.
But you don't need a program. Isn't it a
Yeah.
right of every citizen that they can go watch court? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. You don't need a court program. You don't need an internship. You can walk into a courtroom, any courtroom.
As long as you're 18 years old, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You got to show ID, all that to get into the courtroom, unless you're occupied with a parent or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. You can walk in, sit down, watch a trial, get a feel for it. You can even, after, if you see attorneys in the courtroom, talk to them, let them know you're interested. Majority of attorneys that I know, at least, are more than willing to help out any future prospective attorneys. So yeah, but from law school itself, the curriculum, the courses you take, not very helpful. But yeah.
Somewhat helpful? They got to be somewhat helpful.
They help strengthen your writing. Yes.
That's
you do that throughout, college and high school. They help you, I guess, if you're reading a case, it can help you. You read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cases in law school, and depending on what area you work in after law school, you may never need to know that information. For example, constitutional law. Everybody knows Roe v. Brown v. Board of Education. Pivotal points to our foundation of America and the history of our country. But I work in personal injury. That's never going to come up in one of my cases. But again, you go through the process, you get the degree, and then, you work, get the experience. That's why that first job helps give you that experience, the in-court experience. But yeah, so back to the question. My first time in court in front of the judge was definitely nerve-wracking. I remember specifically I was going to court and I had to argue a motion. So I had to stand in front of the judge and argue why I think we should win our motion, which is
what is a motion? I don't know what a motion is.
So a motion is what we make as attorneys. Essentially, it's an argument on the papers. So we make a motion and we put our argument. The argument can be a variety of things. The most common is, for simplistic terms, for whoever may not know, is we're going to make a motion to the court, to the judge, saying that we think this case should be over. We think we should win based on these facts. And the other side will submit their side to the motion saying, no, they shouldn't win because there's still either a question of facts, or they may say, no, we should win. And all of that's in the papers. But then a lot of the times you have to go in front of the judge and you have to argue your side, why you think you should win the case, why they shouldn't win the case. So you have to be able to both advocate for your strengths and both take away from their strengths. And
Is that happening fast in real time? Like, are you have to respond immediately to what the motion of what your, let's just call it an opponent because I don't know a better term, your opponent is saying, or is it like I submit a motion, judge looks at it, they tell us we got to do something, we go back to the table, we like strategize for 5 minutes, and then we come back with our motion.
so before anything, before the judge essentially sees anything, one side will make, so let's say plaintiff and defendant.
Okay.
One side will make the motion. Let's say the plaintiff makes the motion. They say, listen, this case should be dismissed. I'll use a rear in the end as an example. So majority of the time, if you're in a vehicle and your vehicle gets rear-ended, there's an assumption of liability, meaning the other vehicle is at fault because they rear-ended you. So a lot of times, rear ends, they're kind of no-brainers. They weren't paying attention, they hit you in the rear. So in those circumstances, we'll make a motion saying, Judge, this case should be done. That other vehicle's clearly at fault for the accident. This case should be over. So we'll make the motion, putting all of the strengths and the facts into it. Then, before the judge even sees it, we'll put for example, we'll put a motion on, and we'll say it'll be what's called returnable, or it'll be on in front of the judge in, let's say, 30 days from when we make the motion. So now the other side has, obviously, before those 30 days are up, they have to submit what's called their opposition.
Gotcha.
And, trying to refute all of our points, saying, no, this case shouldn't be over. There's a question of fact, whatever it might be. We're not at fault. And then finally, when the motions get submitted, sometimes the judges will just make a decision based on the papers alone, or they'll ask you to come in and do what's called oral argument and argue your sides in front of him, which when I first started out, everything was oral argument, and that was my first appearance in front of a judge. So this was a bit nerve-wracking, but the good thing is you prepare for it. I knew our motion inside and out. I knew all the facts, all the intricacies, all our strengths, even our weaknesses. And then I also knew what their opposition said. So I can tailor, my responses to their, counter arguments, before I get in there. Because I knew what they were arguing.
Yeah. Did you have practice debates like in school though? Like, did you practice these types of things?
So law school definitely has these programs. They have a debate team. They have a variety of programs that you can get into to help fine-tune those areas. I particularly didn't partake in them.
You're just a naturally good debater. You didn't need to...
I like that.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. First time doing that. And because you could be going up against a pro.
Well, so I was going up against some guy and I was in Brooklyn, so I was in Brooklyn court, and they have their regulars there who are there every day, and they had been there for 10 plus years. Everybody knows them.
Did they look at you like, oh, this is easy? We got a newbie in here.
Oh, we got the new guy from so-and-so. All right, this should be judge. You should be in and out. These are the two guys that sit up front. Everybody else sits in the back because they got all the cases on. And then, you go up and you argue your case and you do what you can do, That's why preparation is everything.
Yeah. Okay. What is an average day in the life of a lawyer? Or is it attorney? Is attorney just same thing as a lawyer, or are they somehow different?
No, same exact thing. So
you rarely go to trial. Trial is very rare. Assuming there's like depositions involved, like what does a normal week look like for you?
So a normal week for me personally is pretty consistent. I handle a lot of cases, so each day I would say in the mornings I'm in court, and by in court I'm going on a variety or a number of cases. Will appear before the judge, and those are what's called our compliance conferences or status conferences, essentially making sure that the case is moving forward. Like you said, depositions are being held, the case is moving along, because the courts don't want these cases to just sit around for years and years and years. They want things to move forward. So in the mornings, I'm usually in court on these conferences with the judges, making sure things are getting done. Then after that, I usually head back to the office. I'll do my write-ups, I'll do follow-ups, I'll contact clients, update clients. If I have motions that I need to work on, I'll work on motions. Or occasionally I'll have an afternoon deposition, like you referenced to. So every day is different, depends on your law firm, the volume of them. For me personally, I like it because I'm in court almost every morning. Breaks the day up. I head back to the office. I get my paperwork done. If I have a deposition, I'll handle that. But that's pretty much my week-to-week kind of agenda, which is nice.
Got it. Now that I work since March of 2020, I have been working from home every day. It's very sedentary. Just sit down. Eat, like when I wasn't working from home, I work in advertising. So very different than law. But when I wasn't working from home, at least I'd be up and around doing meetings. But now I'm just like sitting down as a fly. Sitting down all day. So it must be nice to actually, because you still think I work from home sometimes. So it must be nice to actually be walking around and not. It's probably good for you not to just be sitting down all day too.
Oh, absolutely.
Breaks up the day. You're not just your back. My back, man. It's like, so it's probably fun to like be all around, going to court, coming back, doing a deposition. Makes the day more interesting, I would say.
Yeah, and it's good seeing other attorneys in court. These are some people I was seeing almost every day for a couple of years. And then, the pandemic hits and everyone's remote. You don't get to see anybody unless you're, virtual, which a lot of things still are. But it's nice to get that in-person connection, communication, seeing other people, back to, the old courtroom vibes. And yeah, it breaks the day up, getting out, moving around is nice.
Yeah. What is your favorite part about being a lawyer?
I would have to say the satisfaction you get from, if a case settles or, you win a case, just the client's almost sense of relief, especially in those scenarios, like I said, where, these clients have some, serious injuries that, have debilitated them. And, for them to get some sort of relief or, sanctity and the resolution and, their appreciativeness and their thankfulness, and that goes a long way. And it's really kept me going,
So that's like the energy that drives you, or the spark, because it's like you like being a lawyer, but there's an emotional side of it. It's like someone just like had their life could be completely ruined or somewhat ruined, but and you're fighting for them to like somehow make it right. Even sometimes you probably can't make it right. Even the loss of life, can't even imagine that.
Yeah. It's the little things like that you can get some solitude in knowing that you helped in some way, despite that's happened.
Okay, so I have two questions for you. This is me just generally. I don't think I've ever asked you these two questions. I've asked you many questions on the side about all this stuff, but it's just me just being interested in how this stuff works. There's two questions. One is, why don't lawyers represent themselves more often? And my thinking is like it's like a matter of time, like they don't have the time to fully devote to their case, or is it because there's so many different subject matters and different types of law that you can, like, for example, when you go to buy a house or something, you specifically, you never practice that type of law. So like, is it a waste of your time to represent yourself in that case? Why don't lawyers represent themselves more often?
So a couple of things you mentioned. One, it's the time, especially if it's an area that you're not familiar with. Rather than take the time to learn that area, get someone who does it on a daily basis. They know the ins and outs. They're familiar with it. There's that aspect of it. There's the potential for conflict of interest. I know it's yourself, but you may not see the case because it's yourself, like someone with fresh eyes might see it. You may think this is the best case or the best scenario or the best option for you, and it might not be. And then also, you can't depose yourself. So if you got to appear for a deposition, you can't sit there and depose yourself or depose the other party when you're a party to the case. So that might be one of them, obviously the more,
yeah,
bigger reasons is because you got to have someone there looking out for you, especially in these depositions, which, are crucial. But
are you aware of anyone who's done it successfully, represented themselves? No.
No, because it's usually not a good idea.
All right. My next question is, I feel like this is going to be a stupid question, but that's fine. I ask a lot of stupid questions.
No such thing, like really dumb ones.
In like Suits, gotta love Suits, the show Suits. You'd always see someone like say you got served, so they hand them something, and usually they always have they have a deceptive way to do it. They don't know they're being served, but then they get served. Like someone's tying their shoe, and I don't know. They do it a tricky way of giving you papers, I guess. Now, one is fucking fly. One is, I'm assuming. Sorry, I got flies all in my goddamn house. I'm assuming that means just like orders to go to court or something. And am I right with that? Okay, so it's orders to go to court. But why does everyone, are the TV shows dramatizing it?
Yeah,
like that doesn't happen in real life.
No, that's showbiz. So being served, which I'm sure most people have seen from, like you said, TV and movies, being served is in order to get a lawsuit started, whoever's starting the lawsuit has to serve a summons and complaint. And that summons and complaint essentially says, listen, you're being sued. This is who's suing you. This is why they're suing you. And you need to, either get representation or by yourself, whatever it might be, you need to answer. But the act of serving is what needs to be done. And then there's a certain way it has to be done. So in TV and shows, they make a whole, kind of showbiz or, gimmick out of it in a sense where, the main thing is they'll ask, are you so-and-so? Yeah, why? Who's asking? Because when you serve something upon someone, you have to make sure that it's the right person being served. So that's why typically you can either serve a person individually, so you get confirmation that it's them. Then you can just hand them the summons complaints. You don't actually have to say, you've been served. You can just hand it to them. Or what a lot of the times happens is, you deliver to, their last known address or their residence, where they live, or their place of business. And you can serve it upon someone who identifies as a family member or themselves or an employer of that company, whatever it might be. But it's the actual service is handing them the summons and complaint, which completes service, meaning that they were properly served. That way the case can continue on.
But you can't deny it. Like if someone serves, what if they said, are you Kristen fans? And I was like, no, I'm not. Can I deny it? You just can't. It's
one of the, you can, but it's just one of those things where, so in the actual service, what happens is, and nowadays there's companies that all they do is serve. So they have people go out and they go to your place of business and whatever it might be, and they have to fill out, which is, an affidavit of service. And they kind of describe the person they served it to, their eye color, their height, their hair color, briefly, their ethnicity, what they look like.
Fucking lawyers, man. Always gotta their eye color.
Yeah. So and the location that they served you at. If we're at your house and it's your house on your license and you match the description and you say, no, I'm not, it's pretty obvious that it's you.
Yeah. Got it. Lawyers they're playing chess. Lawyers are always playing chess.
It's a fulfilling profession, I will say.
All right. Well, I am really excited to hear how the trial goes.
Yeah.
Excited for you too. It's like a big step in your career. And I think you're gonna crush it, just knowing who you are. So I'm gonna stop at the hour. I'll stop at the hour because I don't want to go too much longer here. It's Friday night. Probably don't want to talk to me much longer on this podcast. So I'll stop it here. We talked a lot about the intricacies of being a lawyer. So I hope this was helpful for people. And Travis, thank you for coming on. Appreciate you coming on, having a beer with me, and talking through your experiences here. It was really helpful.
Thanks for having me. I had a blast, and if you're watching this, if anybody has any questions, reach out to Chris. If there's anything I can help with, I'll reach out to me, and I'll help in any way that I can.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Have a good rest of your night and a good weekend, my man.
All right, you too. I'll talk to you soon, my brother.
All right, bye.